Bear down, folks, and we are bearing down toward the 2023 opener for Arizona football, and Jedd Fisch has a trajectory on the rise. It'll be interesting to see if the Wildcats can get to postseason play this year. We got Eric Cohen on the line. You can catch him on Cat Country and also CBS Sports Line Early Edge in 5 right here on YouTube. Eric, appreciate you stopping by. What's going on?
Mark, glad to be here and to talk about my favorite subject, Arizona football, as we've had plenty of interesting developments over the last, I would say, few months, to say the least.
So before I go back in time, because I'm a bit of a historian, a novice of sorts, but of course we need to talk realignment. That's the buzz in college football, and Arizona is at the forefront of it. One of the major pursuits of the Big 12 and capturing those 4 corners from the Pac-12. Did you see this coming? And do you believe that this is a good move? Obviously, it's a good move because there's self-preservation, and moving to the Big 12 is exactly that. But in regards to the culture and what has been established there in the Pac conference with Arizona football, and now going and transitioning to a Big 12, just a whole new set of opponents and everything, considering the dynamic, your thoughts about Arizona's move?
Well, let's talk about the summer of 2022 first. I mean, once the Southern California schools, USC and UCLA, defected to the Big 10, the writing was kind of on the wall because, and I would say on Wildcat Country, the podcast that I co-host with Shane Dale, I said, what's left in this conference outside of Oregon and Washington? Who else? And obviously the rivalry with Arizona State, who are you paying to see? Who's really that exciting? No offense to these other schools, but I'm not really, Stanford and Cal don't really care about football. No offense to Oregon State and Washington State, but they don't really move the needle nor sell season tickets. Utah's been good. Colorado obviously has a renewed interest with Coach Prime there. And ASU, obviously, as we talked about, is with the rivalry, the Territorial Cup, which is a hated rivalry for those of you who are not familiar. And I'll probably explain more about that later on. But at that point, it was kind of like, all right, let's make the move here. Let's just move. Let's do it already. And so everybody dragged their feet for basically a year, and they bought into George Kliavkov's, let's just say, fairy tale that he was going to get a television deal done. Now the rumor is that, or I guess what's come out is that he was able to get a $30 million offer from ESPN that the presidents and athletic directors turned down because they wanted $50 million. They thought they should be getting UCLA-esque money after, what UCLA is getting in the Big 10 minus expenses. I mean, it's not realistic. For that late, 10:30 Eastern time period on Saturday nights, I'm sorry, but they should have taken the deal and everything would have been fine with the 10 that are left, and maybe you bring in a San Diego State and an SMU or whatnot, and it is what it is. Once things came out this summer, I actually thought the Pac-12 or Pac-10 was going to stay together. So I had some sources that were telling me, all right, we're good. We're all on track to remain together. And then things changed in a hurry. And boy, what a wild week we had the other week. It was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. I think it's the right move for Arizona to move to the Big 12. I'm really looking forward to the new rivalries. That TCU was in the championship game last year. Cincinnati was in the Final Four. I mean, you talk about basketball, Mark. You got Kansas. You have, Baylor. I mean, 2 teams that are perennial contenders, among others. Houston now. Obviously, BYU, there's a large Mormon contingent out in Arizona. So it makes a lot of sense, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the new matchups that will be created in the next few years.
I did a look at Arizona's results on the field against Big 12 competition since the year 2000, and there's quite a history there in bowl games and in non-conference matchups against Big 12 opponents. And then obviously the 3 that are coming with Arizona also provide that element of familiarity in terms of opponents. So that's not a lone deal of Arizona coming by themselves. And of course, the Territorial Cup, for those people in college football that are just up in arms, and rightfully so, about the fabric of the sport being torn apart, at least the Territorial Cup was saved, and those partners are going together to the Big 12.
Yeah, I was actually hoping. I mean, I'm an anti-ASU guy. You can't root for your rival. You know that. So I was hoping, hey, their president, Michael Crow, Dr. Crow, was really reluctant to make a move to the Big 12. So I was saying, go ahead, stay behind. If you want to do that, You stay behind in what I consider a dead conference, and I hope they're able to play once a year. When it's not better for college sports when Texas and Texas A&M don't play, when Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are losing that rivalry starting in 2024. It just doesn't make the sport better. So yeah, I would like to keep playing ASU, and I'm glad that they're able to do that. But I also wouldn't have minded if they had decided to stay behind because of their president, who is very pro Pac-12.
We appreciate Eric Cohen stopping by from Cat Country. You can also catch him on the Early Edge in 5. It's right here on YouTube. So if people just type in the search bar, Early Edge in 5, they should be able to find you, right, Eric?
Yeah, check us out on the Sportsline YouTube page, and also on Early Edge in 5 is the show that I'm on. So, and I'm on some other ones as well. So I hope you enjoy that. It's if you like sports betting discussion, that's where we can do it. But I'm also on a show, as you mentioned, called Wildcat Country, which you can also find episodes on YouTube.
People aren't going to be quite as interested in this next topic as I am. But again, I love the history of the sport. And I'm not going to take us too far back. It's not like I'm going to bring up Teddy Bruschi or anything. But let's just go back a couple of years, because this was a football program that basically would get to bowl play on a regular basis and would have those peaks of course, the early 90s, would have those peaks of the late 90s, a really good season, of course, ending in the Holiday Bowl against Nebraska, 2014 Pac-12 championship game and Fiesta Bowl appearance, but usually 6-7 wins and going to bowl games and so forth. Rich Rodriguez was right there in that range, and then his tenure goes south. Kevin Sumlin had good stays at Houston and Texas A&M. I in no way expected the disaster that ensued there, that Jed Fish had to pick up the pieces. What really happened there in that transition of Arizona football that made it just the bottom of the Power 5 there for a few years?
I'm going to sum up the last 25 years of Arizona football in hopefully a minute here, Mark. All right, so they finished number 3 in the country in 1998 after beating Nebraska in the Holiday Bowl. Everything looks great. They come out, they're a preseason top 5, top 10 team in 99, go to Penn State and get absolutely walloped by Joe Paterno's squad. After that, Dick Tomey didn't last much longer. They hired John Mackovic, former NFL and University of Texas head coach. That was when I got to school down there. It was an utter disaster. So Mackovic was out after a player revolt 2.5 years in. Mike Stoops came in 2004. That was my senior year. Stoops was the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. Obviously, everybody knows his brother Bob. And Mike did a great job recruiting, brought the talent level up. But Arizona didn't make a bowl game from 1998 to 2008, when they finally made it to the Las Vegas Bowl and beat BYU in what I still say is the coldest I've ever been in. Stoops did a great job, brought the talent in there. As I said, Gronk, Nick Foles, among others, really upped it from where we were used to with Mackovic. So then Rich Rod comes in, and I really like Rich Rod. He brought an exciting offense, as we know, and they peaked in 2014 and made the Fiesta Bowl after beating Arizona State in a game featuring pretty close to top 10 teams in the Territorial Cup. Got walloped by Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game, and then lost to Boise State and Jay Ajayi, the running back, if that name sounds familiar from back in the day. They lost in the Fiesta Bowl. That was exciting. I mean, that was the pinnacle. But the thing about Rich Rod is he didn't recruit. All the guys that he was recruiting were small. He wasn't bringing in, big guys the way you want to build programs. Arizona's lines just look small. And Rich Rod's tenure started to deteriorate. And finally, enough was enough of just getting to minor bowl games. And so they had Khalil Tate come in there, who exploded onto the scene with 300-plus rushing yards in a game against Colorado, 2017. All right, we're going to get rid of Rich Rod. We're going to bring in Kevin Sumlin, as you said. Sumlin was an utter disaster. There's no other way to describe it. He didn't recruit. He didn't care. He had issues behind the scenes, from what I hear. It was just a total failure on all levels. And he was around at least a year too long. It just wasn't working. When Jed Fish was considered, we're all like, who the heck is Jed Fish? And why would you want to bring him in? And I'll tell you what, he's been fantastic. Jed is a player's coach, but he has been an incredible recruiter. Just kept the kid in town, Elijah Rushing, who's a top 10 prospect, according to 24/7 Sports, from the same school that Bijan Robinson went to in Tucson, that's, 3 miles from campus. I mean, you weren't able to keep guys like, and Bijan, obviously, we're talking about a guy who's, could be NFL Rookie of the Year this year, but still, he wasn't even giving Arizona a sniff with Kevin Sumlin. The fact that Jed Fish is able to keep these guys here. Now, wait a second. The first year, that he was here. It was awful. They were 1-11 and only got a win because of Cal having a COVID issue where they were without 30-some players. Last year, 5-7 showed some progress. I think this year, Mark, I want to see a bowl game. You got to get 6 wins here. The schedule is not that favorable. They have some tough road games, and the home games aren't terribly great either. But you know what? You got to pull some upsets like they did at a top 10 UCLA squad last year, and you got to make a bowl game.
So everything seems to be pointing in the right direction, Eric. Everybody raves about Jed Fish doing an excellent job, obviously, in a lot of ingenuity, doing a lot of different things there at Arizona to spark some interest and obviously put a good product on the line on the field. And Jaden DeLora, of course, coming in from Washington State, turned in a decent season there. But maybe the only down portion in regards to how this has transpired here in the last couple of years would be this offseason and losing a lot of players, specifically to USC, but losing a number of key players in the transfer portal. Any concern there?
I think going forward, there's always a concern. You know, when you lose 3 guys to USC and 1 to LSU, you're thinking, well, what are we doing here? You know, Arizona has been very active in the Southern California recruiting market under Jed Fish. He's done a great job bringing players out of Orange County, specifically a high school named Servite. And he was able to get Arizona's first 5-star commit in years with Tetaroa McMillan, who's going to be a true sophomore this season. They also got his quarterback, Noah Fafita, and a linebacker, Jacob Manu, who's one of the anchors of Arizona's defense, all from Servite High School. You hope those guys are going to stick it out long term. And if they get an offer, you know, like a USC, don't bite. It's concerning. I think losing Dorian Singer, who was the Pac-12's leading receiver last year, not really all that concerned about it, to be honest with you. Teams were they were double teaming Jacob Cowing, who was the UTEP transfer, who was leading the conference for a long time in yardage. So Singer really capitalized at the end there. But they were able to bring in Montana Lamonius Craig out of Colorado. He transferred after the spring game and wanted to kind of fills that gap. So you have McMillan, you have Cowing, and you have Lamonius Craig, among others. That is a really, really good receiving core. Tanner McLaughlin is a really good tight end. They have another kid from Servite High, Kean Burnett, who is a 4-star tight end. Arizona has plenty of weapons on the offensive side of the football. I'm not worried about them scoring points this season.
So let's turn the page to the defense. So it sounds like you're leading into the concern that you're going to let us know about.
Yeah, I mean, the defense just hasn't been good in years. It wasn't good under Rich Rod. It wasn't good under Sumlin, and it hasn't been good under Jed Fish. You know, they were able to go get, Johnny Nansen as the defensive coordinator, but they were able to bring back Dwayne Aquina, who was the defensive coordinator back in the day under Dick Tomey. He's worked at Texas, was most recently at Stanford, and he's kind of an advisor, but he's going to have an on-field role, which I think is really important for Arizona. He gets it. He's somebody that is loved in Tucson, and he is, a veteran a guy that's coordinated some really successful defenses, including the Desert Swarm back in the 90s. There's the talent there. I don't know. I mean, they were able to add a guy, Justin Flo, from Oregon, who will help. Taylor Upshaw, defensive lineman, came in from Michigan. Bill Norton, defensive tackle from Georgia. So they're getting guys from, other places. The secondary is a concern. I don't even know what to make of that. Flo, I've heard, has had his ups and downs as a linebacker here in fall camp. So Arizona's defense is ultimately the biggest wild card this season.
Eric Cohen joining us to break down Arizona football entering 2023, trying to get back to postseason play. And Eric, one more time in regards to the best places to find you.
On YouTube, Google Wildcat Country, and you'll find the show that I do with Shane Dale. We do an episode every week on Arizona sports, and we talk to, get some national perspective as well. And I'm also on, if you like the sports betting area, check out Sportsline on YouTube, and you can find me on some of their programs there.
A lot of folks that enjoy those under-the-radar non-conference games. Of course, Arizona, the return trip to Starkville to take on Mississippi State after losing a game in the fourth quarter, basically, a good ball game until Mississippi State took it over. So that's obviously going to be the first measuring stick.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about that one, Mark. I'm kind of biased. Last year, I'm like, hey, Arizona can give these guys a run for their money. It's a night game in Tucson. It's hot. What's Mike Leach's team going to do? And Arizona hung with them for a little while, but they weren't ready to win that game. And they just weren't ready. and they got smoked in the fourth quarter, as you mentioned. You just don't know what to expect from Mississippi State under Zach Arnett, with the sad, untimely passing of Coach Leach. I have no idea what to think. They're changing up the offense, so you're not going to have the air raid style there as we're used to. I don't know. Do I think Arizona's going to win the game? No. Do I think the game should be close? Yes. It will all come down to how successful Arizona's passing attack is against that SEC caliber defense of Mississippi State.
Eric, we so much appreciate you stopping by. Great conversation. Great to get caught up on Arizona football.
Thanks, Mark. Glad to be on with you, and hope to do it again soon.